Okay, so it's a pleasure to have you guys on this lesson. In today's lesson, we're going to answer the Module 3 quiz. But before we jump into the quiz, I have two tips that I have to share with you guys when you're answering questions or quizzes. The first thing you have to note is in programming, you have to solve using the top to bottom approach. So this means you have to look at your code line by line, try to solve one line at a time, okay, and then you it will make sense, right? And then point number 2 or tip number 2 is, let's say you are given an expression that is enclosed in parentheses or in brackets. You have to go inside the expression and solve what is inside the expression or inside the parentheses, and then finally you have to solve what is outside. So first you have to go inside the parentheses and then look at the outside, right? So without much further ado, let me jump into the quiz, right? So the first question in this quiz, it says, what's the output of this code? Of course, this is going to test us on the concepts that we have already learned in this module. So what are the concepts that we have learned in this module? Number one, we have learned about variables, and we have learned about assigning values to variables, which we call declaration of variables. Of course, when you give a name and then a value, that's declaring a variable. And then we have learned about the data types that we can assign to a variable. We can assign a string to a variable, we can assign integers to a variable, we can assign floats to a variable, something like that. And then another thing that we have learned in this, or another concept that we have learned in this lesson, is concatenating. Okay, when we join two strings, let's say I have a 7 which is a string and a 0 which is a string. If I put a plus between, I'm joining these two, it gives me a 70, not a 7. Okay, so that's what we have learned. So we need to apply these concepts in our quiz here. All right, so let's look at the first question. What is the output of this code? It says spam is a variable, it's a name of a variable, and then has been assigned. Equal here in this instance is an assignment operator, a value of 7, but this 7 is in quotation marks, which simply means it's a string. And then over here, this is reassigning. So the way we reassign, of course, the name of the variable, and then here this spam represents this 7, the string 7. So if we join two strings together, 7 and 0, we get a 70, even though it's in quotation marks, right? And then line 3 says eggs, and then we convert this 70 into an integer so that we can add a 3 to it. Okay, as you guys remember, we cannot, join an integer and a string, but we can join a string and a string, or an integer and an integer. We can, add an integer and then with an integer. So over here is going to be 70 plus 3. And then on the last line, inside the parenthesis, says float x. So what is float x? A floating point number is always a number with a decimal point something. So if it's 73, it's going to be 73.0. Check it out down here. We have the answer here. Okay, the first one is the answer. Check it out. Boom, that's the correct answer. Right, so I use this approach, line by line approach. So that's what I used. Right, let's continue to the next question so that we don't waste much time. Right, number 2 says, what's the output of this code if the user enter 42 as input? So the user is going to use the input function. Of course, we learned about the input function. Input function allows us to get information from the user. So, and then we're going to convert that into an integer. So age is going to have 42. Integer 42. So this is straightforward. So age plus 8, 42 plus 8 will give us a 50. So check it out. That's the correct answer. Let's move on to the next one. The next question says, what's the output of this code? All right, x has been assigned a value of 5, and then y has been assigned a value of x plus 3. What is x? X is 5. So 5 plus 3 is going to give us 8. And then y has been reassigned a value of, let's look at the parentheses. Inside the parentheses, we have string y. Why are they converting this y into a string? Because this converts the 8 into a string. Why? Why would they do that? Because they want to concatenate a string with another string. Which string do we have? We have a 2, which is a string, and 8, of course, is going to be a string. unless they do that, this will raise an error. So they don't want to, raise an error. So it's going to be 82. So now after they join these two, they now convert again back into an integer, which is 82. So now we're going to print y is going to be 82 down here. So I can write 82 down here. Okay, check it out. Boom, that's the correct answer. All right, let's continue with, our quiz. All right, fill in the blanks to declare a variable, add 5 to it, and print its value. Here we have the variable has been declared already. X is equal to 4. However, we need to add 5 to that variable. So we use in-place operator plus the plus sign, which is our in-place operator. So I'm going to put a plus here. And then obviously I want to print the X. When we print something, we put parentheses and then we put whatever information we want to print inside those parentheses. All right, check it out. That's the correct answer. All right, let's move on to the next one. The next part is, what's the output of this code? X has been given a value or assigned a value of 3, and then num has been assigned a value of 17. Print num modulo X. You guys remember the modulo operator? What does it do? It gives us the remainder of, a division. So 17 divided by 3 is going to be 5, remainder 2. So modulo, obviously, we're looking at the remainder, so the remainder is 2. Check it out. Boom, that's the correct answer. Right, last but not least, let's look at this. Fill in the blanks to take a name as input and output a welcome message containing the input. So here, name, of course, we're going to assign it the input so that somebody can enter their name. And once we have that name, we're going to print it out. We're going to say welcome somebody. So we're going to say welcome name. As simple as that. All right, check it out. Boom, that's the answer. So for this module, we're done. In our next lesson, we're going to move on to what we call control flow. All right, so I want to thank you for your time. I'll see you in our next video. For now, I'm out. Bye-bye.